Running out money, anything, ayy. Ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the back, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy. Let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Tuesday, everybody. We are rolling solo today. I think we're doing it a couple of times this week. But yeah, and that's because, guests have day jobs, you guys, and schedules change. And I'm not afraid to jump on here and riff for 30 minutes about what is going on out there in the freight market as a whole. And I didn't create a show announcement this time because we're testing some internal data behind the scenes here on just kind of like show performance and stuff like that. So if you don't receive any notification that we're, scheduled a show out or we're going live, that's why. We're just trying to change things up a little bit and study some of this stuff out here to improve and increase our engagement and reach out there on the internet. Also, one just quick announcement, you guys. The Freight Coach newsletter does drop tomorrow morning. Again, this is once a week that this drops, you guys. I don't bombard your inbox with a bunch of stuff. I'm not trying to sell you guys anything. It's all industry related, but I do need you to go to my website, thefreightcoach.com, to register for that. And I do that because I want you guys to want to receive this weekly newsletter. I could just auto sign up the thousands and thousands of people in my contact list, but that's kind of annoying. And I just want you guys to want to receive that. But from here, you guys, what we're going to do. All right. So we're going to do our weekly lane analysis. Then we're going to break down some industry headlines, and we're going to have some fun and talk some shit along the way. But before we do that, like I said, you guys, we are going to do my favorite segment, which is This Week in Freight, powered by my friends over at DAT. Again, you guys, if you want your lane broken down on the show, I just need you to email my team, podcast@thefreightcoach.com. And we do this once for vans, reefers, and flatbeds. We do it 3 times a week. I just tell you guys how I personally read lanes out there and how I approach my prospects and my customers from a pricing strategy to help you guys actually understand what's going on. Because if you just paid attention to social media and headlines out there, it looks like a bunch of chaos is going on in the market, and data doesn't lie. And we're going to break that down. So today's lane, it is Kansas City, Kansas to Charlotte, North Carolina for a dry van. So if you've never bid on a lane before, or if you've never assessed a lane before, the first thing I always pay attention to is miles. Why is that? Transit times matter. Days of the week that this shipment moves matters when you bring that along. Okay. So 964 miles. This is a great 2-day run. But again, if this has to pick on Thursday and deliver on Monday, going to be exponentially more expensive than if it could just ship Friday to Monday, or move Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday out there for 2-day delivery. Again, this is a power lane. If you look at the outbound markets, and that's another thing to pay attention to if you've never bid on a lane before, because the market you're going into matters, right? For those outbound opportunities, those next opportunities for your drivers. And if it goes into one of those historically challenging markets to get out of, rates are a lot more volatile on those specific lanes. But this one, as has been the overwhelming majority of the lanes that I have broken down, stable, okay? And if you pay attention now, because this is what I love about looking at a 12-month cycle, because this time last year, if you just look at it from a pricing perspective, it was like $1,000 less. But we can't pay attention to the rate when we're looking at the longevity and the life cycle of a lane. And what do I mean by that? We can't control the price, right? We don't go out there. We don't set rates as brokers. Shippers don't set rates. the market dictates that, right? Like the market's the market when you strip it all away. It's our job to find consistency for our customers. And I would all but argue that if you follow this trend line from last year, it's going to probably perform the exact same when we're looking at July, August, September, October. If you follow that, and that's where that stability marker is that I want you guys to look for. And if you look at this here, between May, June, and July's almost done, it's been at 27 to 27.50 out there. Now, again, there's probably some anomaly lanes where you had to pay a little bit more on that, but this is as stable as it gets out there. All right. And I'm starting to see that in a lot of the lanes that we're breaking down. And what does stable look like to me? Me personally, it's a $200 rate variance. Okay. And if you're looking at it, you're like, oh, $200, that's a lot. It's not. We're looking at like 5 cents more a mile. Again, went to public school, so please excuse my poor math. But if we're looking at it from that, I follow that $200 variance as what I think a lane is performing. And if it stays between 27 and 2,900, that's a stabilization marker, because if I'm out there pricing this freight to my customers, there's going to be times where my margin is going to look pretty good. There's going to be other times where I'm going to maybe break even, or I'm going to make less on a load, but I'm all about servicing customers over the longevity of it. But again, it's like when a lot of people are screaming chaos, you can be the voice of reason for your customers. And it all goes into how are you assessing the lanes that your customers are moving? How are you breaking a lot of this stuff down and bringing that? Because there's enough trucks on the road. All right. And I say that with confidence because a lot of the freight that we pick up inside of my operation are not the most ideal shipping cities when you're looking at it from a macro scale, right? Like we don't got a ton of stuff moving out of Dallas and Chicago and stuff like that. We're those big recognizable cities. I like playing in the secondary city market, i.e. cities that are like 100 to 200 miles outside of major metro areas that are like industrial hubs out there that a lot of people aren't aware of. Those are the lanes I like to play on. And those lanes, we have not seen that big of a dip in capacity at all. Those lanes have stabilized. And yeah, so that's the way that I'm looking at this right now. So if this is your lane, Kansas City to Charlotte, double down on what you're currently pricing and what you have pricing. If you have been kind of playing the spot market game where, hypothetically you're bidding 32 one day, 34 the next, find that marker where, maybe it's 3,200, maybe it's 3,300. You're splitting it in between the two and stay there. All right. There's going to be days where your margin is going to look a little bit better than others. But again, it's all about the long-term service, because when you strip all of that away, that's truly what matters out there. So if this is your lane, Kansas City to Charlotte, it's stable. And based on the data that I'm seeing out here, it probably will trend up a little bit over the rest of summer, but I think you're going to be all right out there. And, that's another thing too, you guys, as you're going out there and, my perspective on this changed entirely when I restarted my business with 0 customers. Right. And again, I talk about that on the show, but I don't know if enough people can actually conceptualize starting a business with 0 customers, 0 revenue. And I'm not talking like we had customers that were like, hey, we'll give you some freight. There was nothing, right? Like we had nothing at all. And your appreciation factor for business changes. At least for me, it did. When I was working for somebody else, I personally thought everybody was lucky that we were hauling their freight and stuff like that. But when you go out there and you build it up on your own and you got to fight for every dollar, you have that appreciation. You start reading things a little bit differently, because you can't survive in business if you have 1 or 2 really good months and then 10 shitty months, right? You're going to go bankrupt. So you got to find those stabilization and those consistency markers, because like if I stripped everything away over the entirety of my career, it's going to sound overly simple, but our shippers, our customers, and you can even throw you can throw carriers in here, but I'm talking about customers, shippers, their biggest concern is their provider's inability to communicate, right? If you can master communication as a broker or as a carrier, you will never go hungry. That has been on the record and off the record the biggest complaint I have heard from every single one of my guests that have been shippers from every single shipper that secretly watches this show that won't come on, they have all said the exact same thing. My current customers who we move freight with, they say the exact same thing. Our communication, i.e. Freight Coach Logistics, is unmatched out there. Okay. That has been the biggest concern of most operations. And when you're servicing an account, they just want to know what's going on. And that's what I always say, like, your tech stack, yeah, technology is great if you can afford it and you can implement it. But what's most important out there is your ability to communicate with your customers, good, bad, or indifferent. That's our biggest saving grace. It doesn't matter if there's an issue, picking up on time, whatever that looks like, we are going to respond to our customer and we are going to solve that problem. And we're going to provide a solution or whatever that looks like. So your ability to communicate, if I could strip it all away, and if there's one big piece of advice I could give to anybody out there, find a way to communicate at a higher level than everybody else's, and you will separate yourself at a exponentially faster pace than everyone. Because again, everybody's good when it's easy. Okay. Everybody's good when capacity is flowing, drivers are picking up on time, delivering on time. Ironically, your customers don't need you in those moments. They need you in adverse situations, in situations where there's challenges, because most people cower, cry, and go hide and hope these problems work themselves out. But if you can grab the bull by the horns, as they say, and handle it, you are going to be an absolute all-star, and you're going to separate yourself from everybody else out there in the market. But that's just a little bit of wisdom I've learned over the 15 plus years that I've been brokering freight and working with, some of the largest logos in the industry out there at times, right? Like, not right now. We're building that up. We'll be there. We'll be back there. But again, like I said, building up a business from scratch takes a lot of work, a lot more than I personally thought. But speaking of AI, not that we were speaking of that, we were talking about it yesterday with my friend Ben Wilkins of the NMFTA. And, he's got such a great story, being a former driver, now on the cybersecurity side. I follow him religiously in a lot of stuff that he says because he speaks tech and trucker. And it's a rare combination out there. So, but no, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. First article, you guys, that we're going to be breaking down is from freightwaves.com. And this came from Uber Freight CTO. Focus on business fundamentals to win with AI. Shocking. That kind of sounds very eerily similar to a line I've been using. If you implement automation and have shitty processes, you have successfully automated shitty processes. The fundamentals, to me, are all that is going to matter. Yeah, it might seem overly simplistic and not high level enough for people. But the fundamentals is what I think builds consistency, and it builds that trust with customers, is just focusing on the little things and just doing them right repeatedly. But Uber Freight CTO Val Marchevsky, I botched the last name, I apologize for that, Val, addressed why nearly 95% of AI proofs of concept fail when moving into production. He warned freight leaders against chasing AI wrappers or attempting to build a single monolithic magic AI model to run an entire business. Instead, Uber Freight cut manual document processing work by over 50% by building an ensemble of smaller purpose-built models. And then he also emphasized testing new automation tools in shadow mode out there. And again, like it's a brief summary out there, but if you're looking on the fundamentals, right? Like I look at it like your ability to service your customer, massive, right? Your ability to like be organized behind the scenes, i.e. bill them properly, invoice them. If there's an issue out there, have rock solid processes to deal with insurance claims and stuff like that. That matters a lot when because it's like everybody's good. Okay. Like, yeah, some people are better than others out there, but if you look at most brokers' ability to source capacity, we're all really offering the exact same service when you strip it all away. But your ability to consistently execute on the fundamentals is what I think truly separates you time and time again. And like I was mentioning, you guys, as a competitor, it's very encouraging to hear that most of the shippers that I speak with, their biggest complaint is nobody communicates, and knowing that like we double down on that, that's a fundamental that a lot of people overlook. And that's a fundamental that a lot of people could get lost with AI and automation, right? Like is your stuff actually updating people on a timely manner? I look at it where it's like we are working a lot on the like building those rock solid processes. And I've talked about this as well. Like systems development when you're out on your own, at least for me, like the work, I love the work. I love brokering freight. I love doing the job. The systems development when you're out on your own has been the biggest challenge for me overall because it's a massive fucking trial and error. And we are trying to get better every single day, right? Because it takes time to see like, hey, is this system working? No, it's not. Cool. What worked, what didn't work, make those changes and moves on. And then you do that long enough. And I think that AI will eventually catch up with this where, and again, my big audacious goal in the short term is I'm going to build $100 million freight brokerage with 10 people. And with the right automation and technology, it's going to happen. And then that myth of a single AI model. I don't know. Again, I'm not the chief technology officer out there. If we're looking at it in today's terms, it doesn't exist. Could it exist in the future? Yeah, I honestly could see a world where there's like one operating system that goes from ordering the original raw materials to the processing of it, to the transporting, to the packaging, to the third-party warehouse, to the retail distribution center. Like I could see something like that existing in the future. Again, I look at it where it's like if you're like with AI, where should you start? I look at it like what are the menial tasks that you hate doing the most? Maybe it's documenting or process documentation, right? Like POD retrieval, stuff like that. Maybe that's an area to start. I don't think you can go from no automation or no AI implementation to a fully automated system. I think like you do got to break it up in pieces. And then, again, I would start with the things that like what consumes your time the most. I know personally, again, inside of my operation, building loads takes time. And that is because all of our shippers tender loads differently, right? Like there is no one way of a shipper sending over a bill of lading. Some are EDI, some are email, some are text message, some are Excel spreadsheets, some are PDF attachment. So it's like that takes time to build that up. And I'm not saying AI tools aren't out there to do that. They definitely are. But that might be an area for you to focus in on to start, right? Like that takes time. But again, you got to monitor that stuff and see. Like we're not a AI centric freight brokerage yet, but we are. Again, I've been working with Gemini behind the scenes to build a prospecting sales tool, and it's takes a lot of work to remind that thing what to do and to stay on task out there. But again, I look at it where, start with the front line. This isn't, and this is what's unique about our opportunity in building a business from scratch and building it from the ground up is like we are on the front line right now. And we're able to identify a lot of these tools. So I personally think, and this is why I'm 100% convinced we're going to build this $100 million freight brokerage with 10 people, is we know all the bottlenecks, the workflows that are out there that we want to automate now that, again, from a funding perspective, we're not quite there. But it's like we know where we can build this up from day one and have this kind of explode, right? Like in a good way. I'm really looking forward to that. But again, pay attention, you guys. Like some of the largest companies that are out there, they're laying out a playbook, right? Like the Uber Freight CTO, like not only is Uber Freight, but Uber, the rideshare, like I guarantee, although they're different businesses, they share a lot of intel. And I think like success leaves clues when you strip it all away and pay attention to those things, right? But at the end of the day, you got to go out there and execute upon it. And I loved what they said about focusing on the fundamentals. I'm a firm believer in that. But that article was from freightwaves.com. And again, you guys, all the links to the articles will be uploaded into the show notes for you guys to read yourself on what's going on or drop it into an AI tool to summarize it. Oh, shit. Next article. This came out a while ago, like in today's terms, like 8 days ago. But my good friend Cassandra Gaines contributed to this. And again, she's one of those individuals, you guys, where follow her. If you're not, I'm sure most of you are who are watching this show. She is the real deal. Like just in simple terms, you guys, she's fucking great. Anytime she speaks, I listen, because she is 100% geared towards improving the industry, and I love her content out there. But this goes on to say, it talks about with deploying AI agents to optimize quoting, appointment scheduling, load tracking, and all of this stuff. And it talks about the CH Robinson in implementing a lot of AI, and it looks at where the title of this article is "Don't Get in Trouble Again. AI everywhere except carrier vetting is a problem." And the vetting double standard it talks about, it's like if you're going to go out there and build AI for pricing and scheduling, you can't not use AI to go to carrier vetting. And again, like, I think what's interesting about utilizing AI to vet carriers, or if you look at a lot of the third-party software that's out there, again, I'm not privy to every single contract that is available to there, but it's like, I look at it and it's like, if you use the information on a third-party vetting or an AI tool out there to vet a carrier, and it turns out that carrier was fraudulent, who's at fault, right? Like, and that's kind of my big thing. And I'm not blaming anybody or any one entity out there, but it's like, as a broker, if I'm using the technology that somebody has said is the real deal, but like if fraud and stuff sneaks through those systems, am I liable or is the vendor liable? I'm assuming there's airtight contracts that recuses himself from any and all liability in the event that something goes wrong. So there's a lot of irony out there, but I look at it where if you're going to be implementing it to make critical decisions inside of your organization, like vetting carriers and load booking and everything else. And again, I can't wait for the data to come out. And I think this might change a lot of people's opinions when it comes down to AI in the vetting process is how much fraud took place by bots, in the sense of like the bots didn't catch it. They gave them access to it, or like a click to book option inside of a broker's TMS, where it gives carriers an opportunity to go in there and book loads directly without actually talking to a carrier rep and having a person manually vet that. Because again, I've been on plenty of podcasts as a guest, and one of the topics of conversation that came up was just that, right? And I'm like, I'm still waiting for that data point to come out, because it's like some of these fraudulent actors now are very sophisticated, and they can kind of sit behind the scenes, and they got, they're out there, they're picking up on time, they're delivering on time, they're building that trust. And if you're not manually checking some of those things, I think that exposure is out there. So it's like, I think utilizing vetting software, but not losing the human element, I think is key in training your team on that intuition, where it's like, again, I've been doing this for a long time. I can tell in about 30 seconds or less if somebody's full of shit on the phone. What do I mean by that? Without going into too much detail about what I look for, it's very basic information that there is a severe lack of knowledge. I'll leave it at that. And if they can't answer that, I'm done. Like, I don't give a fuck how cheap their truck is. I don't care about any of that shit. You're not going anywhere near my customer's freight if you can't do that. And, again, it's like, I think you got to put limits on that, right? Like, that's why I'm saying, well, from an automation standpoint, it has to go to a certain point where you need the human to be able to do that. And there's some great tools that help you kind of filter through a lot of the bullshit. But again, I'm waiting for that data to come out when it looks at fraud, double brokering, theft, all of that, how much had a direct tie to a digital booking platform or a AI tool that missed something, right? Because again, AI is great, but it's not the fucking end all be all. And I think that's why you need to never lose the human element to that, right? And it is talking about, in this article, the human in the loop safeguard, right? Like, again, use AI to a point, have it make, checks and balances, and have the human double check that stuff. And because I look at it where I think most people fail, where they think vetting is a one-time thing, right? Where it's like, oh, they're set up in our system. And this is where vetting software does come in, where I think it's extremely valuable out there in the market is it's a continuous process, right? It's filtering things behind the scenes for you where, hey, this carrier was good this week, but then 10 days from now, when you go to book them again, they get flagged, right? Maybe it's their insurance that's coming up or their insurance expired in that time frame. And if you didn't do anything to kind of check it, if it was a one-time thing, you might not have those systems in place to kind of have those checks and balances out there. Or heaven forbid they were involved in a fatality out there on the road, or there was an unresolved claim issue that comes up over that time frame. This is where I think that continuous process of vetting your providers behind the scenes is great. I just look at it like this: like, you need to be constantly vetting, or you need to be going through and auditing your carriers that you're working with. And again, if you're in that position where it's like, hey, we have an automated load booking process, again, who am I? I'm not a lawyer or anything like that, but I would want to re-implement a human to that, right? Like, use some of this stuff to identify red flags. But I still think the biggest question that is yet to be answered is have these scammers infiltrated people's operations because they have removed the human bullshit meter from that transaction. And, again, I think that people would be unpleasantly surprised at some point, right? Because again, I see it where, people will email us about loads, right? Because in our load postings, we will have our email address in there. We never book a load via email, unless it's a core carrier that we've worked with multiple times. On the initial load booking, or at least the first 10 to 15 times that we book them, if anybody, because I've had that happen, right? Where it's like, you get that email, hey, send that load over. No, not at all. Call me. That's my literal response. Call me. Here's my phone number. And if they don't call, you're dodging a bullet, right? Like, so again, I think you have to have that human stopgap in there, because they're going to get more and more sophisticated, you guys. And the more that there is a push for AI and automation inside of your business, there's going to be an increasing desire to have the desk level person not have anything to do with the shit anymore. And I'm going to be interested to see, is that the main driver for where a lot of people get access to freight because it's all automated? So check that article out, you guys. It came out like 10 days ago. I know that's like a fucking lifetime in today's environment, but anytime Cassandra Gain speaks, I listen. She wrote that article, so check that out. But that's going to be it for today, you guys. I got a guest coming on tomorrow, and I think we got another solo show rolling this week. But that's going to be it. As always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank that show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Hey, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the